One of the biggest challenges for Hytale is undoubtedly going to be first impressions. It's easy to view the game at a glance and write it off as just another Minecraft clone. And in fact, its roots are in that game, being made by the team behind the popular Minecraft server, Hypixel. The developer isn't shying away from those roots either, stating that the early goal in creating Hytale was to make the next evolution of Minecraft. Now recently, an Edge article dove into the development and history of the game, but I think more importantly is that they touched on what Hytale is doing to make itself different. How is Hytale not just Minecraft 2? Let's talk about it. At its core, Hytale does have a lot in common with Minecraft. The blocky look, a landscape that's procedurally generated with fields, towns, mountains, and caves. There's a fieldcraft system letting you make basic survival tools and a workbench for more complicated crafting recipes. But there's also quite a bit that Hytale is doing to set itself apart, beginning with their handcrafted prefabs. Every zone in the game will have its own set of unique rooms, dungeons, forts, and so on, with every one of them having multiple potential variations, creating some really unique and interesting places to explore. For example, you may come across a tiny ruined fort in the woods guarded by several skeletons. You fight the skeletons back, hop into its basement, and collect a tiny treasure. But that same little fort, which acts as a parent node, can have multiple variations of children nodes, essentially turning that tiny fort into a massive labyrinth of interconnected buildings, groups of enemies, and hidden treasures all over the place, turning a tiny, quick little encounter to a sprawling adventure. And apparently, there are currently 7,000 of these types of prefabs in the game. And then there's the zone system. So the entire world is procedural with those prefabs and its variations that I just mentioned, but it's also then divided into several distinct zones, which will take on the following rough structure. The more temperate Zone 1 will always be in the middle of the map, the hot jungle and dry deserts of Zone 2 to the south, and the frozen mountains of Zone 3 to the north. Now, the further you explore into each of these zones, the more severe the climate and weather gets, along with offering greater difficulty missions and rewards. It's not just that every zone is a new tier of challenge, but within each of the zones, there will be a range of difficult encounters, enemies, and rewards. And then there's the late game areas, starting with Zone 4, made up of these massive stone pillars, a volcanic region overflowing with pools of lava and fiery enemies. These are guaranteed to be in every zone. It's essentially the Mordor of Hytale. You'll see these very ominous locations, and you know there's some tough stuff there. And then beneath that volcanic region, there's this subterranean jungle filled with bioluminescent flora and dinosaurs. Now, beyond the climate, weather, and geology differences, every zone also has its own set of distinct content, including unique NPC races, creatures and critters, bosses, and plant life. Exploring in this game will be very different from region to region. No two caves will look alike, and they'll be even more different if they're caves in different areas of the world. They're really looking to create this sense of exploration and adventure in combining this cohesive general layout and structure with the variety that procedural generation is going to offer. And then layered on top of that, these prefab locations that could turn a tiny little location into a massive area and big adventure for you to come across. It's really, really cool. And this kind of plays right into the next major focus of Hytale that is going to set it apart, and that is its RPG focus. So on the official website, one of the first lines used to describe the game says this: Hytale combines the scope of a sandbox with the depth of a role-playing game, immersing players in a procedurally generated world where teetering towers and deep dungeons promise rich rewards. At its core, they're focusing on the role-playing nature and the collecting of loot and everything. It isn't just a blocky sandbox game. There's a big emphasis on questing, boss fights, exploration, and collecting loot. So you'll come across things like mage towers overrun with enemies, you'll descend into underground caverns and stumble across colossal boss monsters. There's world events tied to specific areas. For example, you may find this massive tower, and as you walk into it, an objective pops up in the corner asking you to defeat enemies in the area or collect valuable artifacts. There are things like treasure maps that you can buy from vendors. You'll come across bounty quests that task you with tracking down an enemy. All of this rewarding you with loot, currency, and experience to build up your character. On top of that, the game's gonna have this overarching story guiding you through the experience of every zone, as well as plenty of world and lore building that's baked into the environments, areas that you come across, and the NPCs that you encounter. And then we've got the combat. combat. I know it's a block game and you might not think of that, but they're really hoping to deliver satisfying combat according to what they're saying. So it's going to be more than just swinging a sword. They want to make sure the combat is both reactive and proactive. There will be weapon families, each with their own attack patterns, like warhammers with a slow, wide, sweeping attack that'll be good for crowd control. There's axes that have a shorter range but much higher damage. There'll be one- and two-handed swords, daggers, shields, magical stabs, and tomes for you to spell cast. There's also going to be charge attacks and dashing and blocking, and they're even talking about adding sneak attacks to the game if you like kind of being a little bit of a rogue character. We've seen bits and pieces of gameplay in the little footage that they've revealed so far, and most recently, a couple of weeks ago, in an audio blog post, they also gave us some more looks at the action combat. And again, I know it's a block game and it's easy to probably be dismissive, but what makes combat feel good a lot of times comes down to the sound effects, the animations, and the general play with your perspective of the game. And just because it's a blocky type game doesn't mean that combat can't feel good. And they're also talking about having a pretty big emphasis on PvP. Given the developer's background in making multiplayer competitive mini games, they're really going to play that into Hytale as well. So I think there's a lot of potential here with the RPG elements and their focus on having good feeling, impactful combat that's reactive and proactive and offers a lot of different variety. I know this isn't technically an MMO, but I'm getting a lot of that exploration and cooperative multiplayer feel in this world that appears to be something that's going to be fun to explore. And all of that really has me very excited for Hytale. On top of all of this, they're also going to have a massive focus on the player-driven content. They realize that for the longevity of the game, it's really helpful if you've got users out there who are passionate creating things for you. So Hytale is going to try to be as much of a platform as it is a game. And the big thing is going to be their easy-to-use editor, allowing players to mod essentially every aspect of the game. I mean, some of the brief clips that they showed in the original trailer showed a lot of variety and different things that you can do. They're also talking about supporting content creators with the ability to change the time of day and weather and environmental effects, and have a lot of use of a free roam camera to make interesting content essentially. So it seems that there's a pretty clear focus not only on delivering this cohesive, interesting RPG/sandbox adventure, but also giving the tools over to the players if the game ends up having a strong player base, which all signs are pointing to yes, unless they really mess this up. It should have a very strong player base, giving those passionate players the tools to kind of shape the game the way they see it or make changes that they're interested in, and then bringing that out to the community. The article touched on a bunch of other stuff. Again, it talked about the history of the game. Again, the developers being the ones who made the very popular Minecraft surfer Hypixel. They talk about the popularity that they've gained since the release of the first Hytale trailer. I think coming up on 55 or 56 million views at this point. All of the extra funding that's given them, and all of this basically allowing them to really deliver the vision that they had in their heads, their dream for, again, the next evolution of Minecraft. So it's been pretty cool. Apparently this game has been in development for the past 3 years. They've had teams across the UK, Ireland, Canada, France, Russia, and Australia. And again, they're really looking to push past the genre convention and be a lot more than just Minecraft 2. And I think a lot of what they're talking about shows promise of that being the case. For me right now, Hytale looks really interesting, and that's from someone who has dabbled with Minecraft, but was never really, that was never a game that I played for years on end. But I see why people like it as much as they do, and there's just something very appealing in what Hytale is delivering here. It looks a lot more, again, than just Minecraft 2. It looks like they're going to be delivering this fun, multiplayer RPG adventure that I could jump in with a couple of friends, go around exploring dungeons, fighting bosses, and collecting loot. And at its core, that's a lot of what I really love about multiplayer RPGs, MMOs in particular. Again, I know this isn't an MMO per se, but I think it's going to deliver a lot of the experience that I enjoy from that multiplayer fantasy exploration and character building. And I'm really excited about that stuff. I think the modding and the community-driven content is cool too, although personally, very unlikely that's something that I would ever dabble in, with the exception of checking out things that other people have created. But I think it's very smart of them to include it, because I agree it's important for the longevity of the game, or at least at the very least, it certainly helps the longevity of the game if you have passionate users making content for your game, for the platform. I know that we're still likely well over a year away. We know that this game isn't coming out until sometime in 2021. I would be surprised if it was early 2021. Most likely summer or fall would just be my educated guess, I suppose. But hopefully we get a beta later this year, because I am very excited for Hytale. It's surprising to me, but I am. It looks really cool. I understand the hype. I understand why so many people are excited, why that trailer got so many views, and diving into some of the things that they're hoping to do to set themselves apart from Minecraft. It sounds great. It's pretty cool stuff. It just looks good. Hytale looks good. There's a reason it's got 55 million views on the first trailer for the game, okay? Hytale looks good. A lot of people are excited for it, and you know what? You can count me in those people. I get excited for games. It's what I like. It's fun. I like it. It's good, and I hope this one's good. So, don't mess it up, okay?